You've probably spent a few minutes scrolling through endless lists of fast and powerful switches, wondering which one will actually sit on your desk or rack without becoming a constant source of headaches. You want something that just works, that you can plug in and forget about, and that doesn't chew up your budget for features you'll never use. The moment you start weighing 2.5G versus 1G or PoE Plus versus plain Ethernet, you risk getting lost in tech jargon instead of focusing on the day-to-day reality of running a small office or a home lab. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. That's why I'm looking at the HPE Instant on Secure Gateway 5-port SmartRate. It's marketed as a plug-and-play gateway that bundles a couple of 2.5 gigabits per second uplinks with PoE Plus support, promising enough juice for a few IP cameras, a VoIP phone, or a Wi-Fi access point, all while keeping your network tidy. My goal here isn't to rave about headline numbers, it's to see how that promise translates when you actually mount it behind a desk, hook a security camera, a printer, and a couple of laptops, and then walk away. First off, the biggest practical win is the 64W total PoE budget spread across the 5 ports. For a typical boutique office, you might have a single ceiling-mounted security camera that draws 12W, a PoE-powered Wi-Fi AP needing around 15W, and maybe a VoIP handset at 5W. That adds up to under 35W, which means the switch still has headroom for a future expansion, perhaps an additional AP or a thin client. In real-world terms, you can keep those devices powered without running a separate power adapter for each, cutting down on cable clutter and outlet hunting. The 2 SmartRate ports that support 2.5 gigabits per second are another quiet strength. If you've got a workstation that needs a little extra bandwidth for large file transfers, or a NAS that you want to feed at more than 1 gigabit per second, those ports let you do it without upgrading the whole network to a 10 GBE backbone. In practice, I've seen the difference when copying a 20 GB video project from a NAS to a laptop. The 2.5G link shaved off a good 5 minutes of transfer time compared to a 1G bottleneck. It's not a massive leap, but it's noticeable enough that you feel you're getting value beyond the basic 5-port switch label. On the flip side, the switch does have a few trade-offs that matter if you're trying to squeeze every penny out of your gear. The PoE budget is split evenly across the ports, which means you can't concentrate all 64W into a single high-power device like a PTZ camera that might need 30W. If your use case leans heavily on one power-hungry endpoint, you'll end up throttling the rest of the ports or needing an external injector. Also, the SmartRate ports are limited to 2.5 gigabits per second. There's no 5 gigabits per second or 10 gigabits per second option, so if your future plans include a multi-gigabit server or a 10 GBE uplink to a larger switch, you'll hit a ceiling sooner rather than later. Who should reach for this gateway? Small businesses that run a handful of PoE devices. Think a reception desk with a security camera, a wireless AP, and maybe a few VoIP phones will appreciate the clean power delivery and the modest boost in bandwidth without having to buy a full-blown managed switch. Home-based content creators or IT hobbyists who want a tidy way to power a NAS, an access point, and a couple of smart home hubs will also find it a good fit. The device is straightforward enough that you don't need a network engineer to configure VLANs or CoS, you just plug it in and it works. Who might want to skip it? If you're planning a larger office rollout that will eventually need multiple high-power PoE devices, or if you're already looking at a 10 GBE backbone, you'll probably outgrow the SmartRate limits and the PoE budget quickly. Enterprises that need granular traffic shaping, deep packet inspection, or advanced security policies will also find the Instant Online too simplistic. Those environments usually demand a managed switch with a richer feature set. In those cases, spending a bit more on a managed 8-port or 24-port switch with higher PoE per port could save you a future upgrade. From a day-to-day standpoint, the unit is surprisingly quiet. The fanless design means you won't hear it humming in a small conference room, and the metal housing stays cool even when the PoE budget is fully utilized. The front panel LEDs are simple but informative: link, activity, and PoE status, so you can glance and know if something's dropped without logging into a web interface. Cable management is also decent. The ports are spaced enough to accommodate standard RJ45 connectors without cramming, which is a small but welcome detail when you're swapping devices on the fly. In terms of value, the price point sits right at the sweet spot where you're paying for genuine PoE capability plus a bit of extra bandwidth, without paying for layers of management you probably won't use. Compare that to a comparable 5-port.